They say the moon is beautiful not because it tries to be seen, but because it simply is. It reflects, it waits, and in its quiet orbit, it teaches us something we're often too distracted to learn, that real light is borrowed, and real power is silent. When I ask, is the crescent moon in the palm of your hand? I'm not talking about something you can grab or own. I'm talking about your relationship with your own reflection. How you see yourself when no one's watching, how you move when there's no applause, and what you value when the world stops shouting. 2025 will bring many things to the surface. Some will glitter, some will tempt, and some will confuse. You'll be presented with chances to look like you're winning, but looking like you're winning and actually being in alignment with your life, that's not always the same thing. The crescent moon, in this metaphor, isn't a prize you win or a symbol of success you flash to others. It's a mirror. It's what appears in your hand when your internal world and your external actions finally stop fighting. It shows up when you're no longer pretending, no longer striving to be someone else, no longer at war with your own timing. Too many people spend their lives grabbing at symbols, the big title, the status, the attention, the curated identity. They build a palace around themselves, tall, impressive, polished. But inside, it's often empty, silent in a way that feels cold, not calm. That's because they never asked whether the moon they were chasing was real or just a reflection on a broken screen. Next year, something will shift. You might find yourself sitting in silence more often, not because life has gone wrong, but because life is making room for something more honest. The question won't be, what can I get? But rather, what am I carrying that's not even mine? You'll feel this especially when things stop working the way they used to. When you do the same thing you've always done, but this time there's no spark. That's the moon, in a way, calling you back, asking you to stop performing and start listening. Because here's the truth, the moon only reflects what's already there. So if you're anxious, it will reflect that. If you're hiding behind noise, it will stay dim. But if you find stillness, even for a moment, it will glow. In 2025, you will have many opportunities to shine, but not all light is real. Some is forced, some is desperate. The real light won't ask you to push, it will ask you to clear space, to empty your hands of everything you've picked up out of fear or ego. Only then can the moon fit. That's why it's not about chasing it. You don't have to run after the crescent moon. You have to become the person who can hold it without needing to prove it to anyone. That's the shift. When your presence is enough, the moon arrives. When your silence speaks louder than performance, it finds you. And when your actions come from truth instead of insecurity, the glow becomes steady. But it won't happen if you're still looking for yourself in other people's eyes. It won't happen if you think the next milestone will finally make you whole. It happens when you realize you were never meant to hold the whole moon. Just a crescent, a beginning, a sliver of light that says, I'm not finished yet, but I'm here. And that's what will make 2025 different. You will stop chasing full moons and start honoring the crescents. You will recognize that the journey is not toward brightness, but toward authenticity. And in your palm, there will not be a trophy. There will be a mirror, one that reflects not who the world wants you to be, but who you are when all the noise fades and all that's left is you. So when the time comes, and it will, ask yourself, gently, honestly, what am I really reaching for? Because the crescent moon only rests in hands that are open. There's something strange about letting go. It always feels like losing. At first, we hold on to things not because they serve us, but because they're familiar. We grip tightly to identities, habits, even pain, because we've made them part of our story. But what we forget is that the same hands we use to hold on are the ones we need to open if we ever want to receive anything new. In 2025, something unexpected will happen to you. You will be asked, not by someone outside you, but by life itself, to release what you think you need. And it won't ask politely. It will come in the form of change, disruption, or a subtle emptiness where joy used to be. The moment you feel that pull to resist, to cling tighter, you'll know this is not punishment. This is the invitation. Because the truth is, what you don't let go will weigh you down. You can pretend you're moving forward, but if you're dragging the past behind you like a sack of stones, you're not progressing. You're surviving, and survival is not the same as living. What's comfortable can be deadly. Familiarity can be a cage. There's a moment in everyone's path when comfort stops being a blessing and becomes a barrier. That moment is coming for you. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is unclench your fist. Not because you're giving up, but because you've realized you were never meant to carry that thing forever. Maybe it's a relationship that once felt right, but now only feeds your fear of being alone. Maybe it's a title you've outgrown, or a role that no longer fits the shape of your soul. Or maybe it's the version of yourself you created to survive, but now you're safe, and that armor is just keeping you distant from everything real. You'll know what it is because it will start to feel heavy. You'll feel it in the quiet moments, in the sigh you can't explain, in the tension in your chest when you walk into the same old room, speak the same words, wear the same mask, and when that heaviness becomes undeniable, you'll have a choice: continue or release. This isn't about recklessness. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning everything. It means becoming intentional. It means asking, is this helping me grow, or is this holding me hostage? And if the answer is the latter, the act of release is not loss, it's realignment. One of the most beautiful things about the moon is that it doesn't resist its phases. It waxes, it wanes, it disappears, it reappears. It understands that nothing real is lost, only transformed. The same is true for you. What leaves your life in 2025 will make space for something deeper. But only if you don't chase after it when it walks away. Letting go requires trust, not in outcomes, but in yourself. Trust that your worth isn't tied to what you keep. Trust that you can live without what you thought was essential. Trust that emptiness is not the end. It's the beginning of clarity. But to reach that clarity, you have to be willing to stand still with empty hands. You have to allow what wants to fall away to do so, without your interference. You might be surprised at how peaceful it feels once you stop resisting. Yes, it might ache at first. Letting go always does. But soon, that ache will be replaced by lightness. Not the kind that comes from distraction or escape, but the kind that comes from truth. You'll breathe differently. You'll move differently. You'll stop performing and start simply being, and that's where the transformation begins. Not in getting more, but in needing less. Not in filling your time, but in freeing your energy. The people, places, and habits that stay with you after you let go. They're the ones aligned with where you're going, not just where you've been. So if something leaves in 2025, let it. If something ends, bless it. If you feel your hands unclenching, don't rush to grab something new. Wait, feel the emptiness. Let it teach you. And only then, only when your hands are open, will you be ready to hold what truly belongs. Most people wait for certainty before they move. They wait for the plan to be clear, the path to be lit, the signs to be obvious. But life doesn't work like that. Not anymore. Not in 2025. This year, the ground will shift beneath your feet. The familiar markers, what used to guide you, won't be there anymore. The path will vanish, and you'll be left standing in a silence that asks you one question. Will you step forward anyway? There's a kind of courage that's not loud. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic change. It's the quiet kind. The courage to move even when you can't see where your foot will land. That's what will be asked of you. And here's the irony: the more you wait for clarity before acting, the longer you stay stuck. Because clarity doesn't come first, action does. The path reveals itself after you take the step, not before. And I know how hard that is. We've been conditioned to believe that if we can't see it, it's not safe. If it's not mapped out, it's not wise. But the deeper truth is this: your next step won't come with guarantees. It won't come with applause. may not even come with confidence. It will come with a whisper, a small pull, a nudge that doesn't explain itself. That's how life speaks when it wants you to grow, quietly, but persistently. There will be moments this year where you feel suspended, like the ground beneath you is gone and nothing ahead makes sense. You'll try to plan, you'll try to analyze, you'll try to wait until it feels right. But nothing will feel right until you start walking. You won't get the answers while sitting still, because the wisdom, the guidance, the momentum you're waiting for, it's hidden in the step you haven't taken yet. This is not about recklessness. It's not about rushing. It's about trust. Trusting the part of you that knows, even when your mind is filled with questions. Trusting that if something is calling you, then something real is waiting on the other side of that unknown. But you can't meet it from a distance. You have to move toward it, step by step, breath by breath. Sometimes we treat uncertainty like a problem, but it's not. It's an invitation. It's a space where new things can be born. It's where your patterns break down, where your story expands. In 2025, you'll learn that the path isn't made of certainty. It's made of movement. The first step is never about the destination. It's about becoming the kind of person who moves with intention. Even when the map is gone, there's an intelligence in the unknown. A language that doesn't speak in logic but in presence. If you pause long enough to listen, not to the noise in your head, but to the truth underneath, you'll feel it. You'll feel the direction, not as a command but as a quiet leaning. A weight in your chest that says, this way. And that's enough. That's where you begin. You'll make mistakes. You'll take steps that don't lead where you thought they would. But those so-called wrong steps, they're part of it. They're not detours. They're not delays. They're how you learn to navigate without the old maps. They teach you how to feel instead of calculate. They sharpen your instincts. And eventually, what used to feel like fog starts to feel like freedom. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready, because readiness is a myth. No one feels ready when it matters. They just decide. They just take the first step and let life meet them there. In 2025, the path will not lay itself out like a straight line. It will appear piece by piece, only as you move. That's the design. That's the wisdom. So when the familiar vanishes and the next step feels invisible, don't freeze. Don't stall. Don't convince yourself that stuck is safe. Choose the direction that speaks to something deeper than fear, and move, even if your hands are shaking, because the moment you do, the ground returns beneath your feet. You'll hear it before it arrives, that small whisper, that subtle shift in your gut. It doesn't come with warning signs, no flashing lights, no dramatic announcement. It's just there. Quiet, unshakable knowing that something is about to move. Most people ignore it, not because they can't hear it, but because they've trained themselves to only respond to volume. And by the time life starts shouting, it's already too late to walk. Now you have to run. In 2025, you'll be given a chance to learn the language of the whisper, that soft inner voice that doesn't argue, doesn't demand, doesn't even explain itself. It just tells the truth. And truth rarely screams. It taps you on the shoulder while everything else is screaming for your attention. That's the challenge. The world will keep getting louder. Distraction will come dressed as urgency. Chaos will dress up as relevance. But underneath it all, that voice, your voice, will still be speaking. If you're willing to get quiet, you'll hear it. And when you do, you'll realize it's been speaking to you all along. There will be moments when nothing external seems to be wrong, yet something inside you stirs. You'll feel uneasy, restless, disconnected, maybe even a little lost. That's the whisper before the storm, the intuitive warning before the world catches up. And you'll be tempted to dismiss it, to say, it's just in my head, or I'm overthinking. But deep down, you'll know better. Because the body knows before the mind does. The heart feels before the facts arrive. That discomfort is not the problem. It's the message. It's easy to say, I'll trust my intuition. But it's hard when that intuition pulls you away from comfort, when it tells you to walk away from something that still works on the outside, but feels wrong on the inside, when it tells you to slow down when everyone else is speeding up, when it tells you to say no, even though saying yes would be easier. That's when it takes real strength. To follow a whisper, not a command. You don't need more signs. You don't need permission. You don't need a crisis to justify what you already know in your bones. If something doesn't feel aligned, it isn't. If a situation starts to tighten around you, pay attention. The whisper will come before the walls close in. That's your window. That's the moment. Not when things explode, but when you feel the wind shift. If you listen and move then, you grow. If you wait and deny, life moves you anyway, but with more force, more pain, more urgency. What 2025 will teach you is how to notice the early signals, not to live in fear, but to live in sensitivity. Sensitivity is not weakness, it's clarity. The more tuned in you are to yourself, the less you need chaos to wake you up. You become your own guide. You spot the imbalance before it becomes illness. You notice the distance in a relationship before it becomes disconnection. You feel the pull toward a new direction before the old one collapses. That's the gift of the whisper. It shows up early, but only if you're quiet enough to hear it. Stillness becomes your power, not the kind that hides, the kind that listens. In the stillness, you begin to see. The noise falls away, the pressure softens, and what's left is you, awake, aware, ready. You stop reacting, you start responding. You stop chasing what's loud, you start honoring what's real. The whisper isn't random, it's precise. It speaks when something in your environment or in your behavior is misaligned. It's not there to scare you, it's there to wake you gently, so you don't have to be jolted later. If you learn to respect that quiet voice, you avoid so much unnecessary pain. You learn to shift before you're shoved. You learn to act from insight, not from crisis. And maybe, most importantly, you learn to trust yourself again, not the version of you that performs, pleases, or analyzes, but the version that simply knows, the one who's always known. So when that whisper comes in 2025, and it will, don't talk over it, don't drown it out, don't wait for the storm to validate what you already feel. Stop, breathe, and listen, because that voice is not a warning, it's a gift. At some point in 2025, you're going to be standing at a quiet crossroads. It won't come with a dramatic sky or a flashing sign. It'll look like an ordinary day, like a routine decision. But underneath, something deeper will be happening. You'll be asked to choose between comfort and alignment. And that choice will define more than you think. Comfort is seductive. It doesn't yell. It doesn't demand. It simply whispers, stay. It tells you things are fine as they are, that you've made it far enough, that you don't really need to change. And it makes a strong case, because comfort knows your fears. It knows how to disguise itself as peace when it's really just avoidance. It knows how to quiet your intuition with soft cushions of familiarity. But alignment, that's a different language. It doesn't always feel good at first. In fact, it often feels uncomfortable, especially when you've been out of sync for a while. Alignment asks more of you. It doesn't let you shrink. It doesn't allow you to pretend. It pulls you toward your potential, not your preference. It requires honesty, discipline, and the courage to stretch. You'll know when you're being asked to choose. You'll feel it in your body. You'll get an opportunity that excites you but terrifies you. A door will open, but walking through it means letting go of what feels secure. A conversation will arise, and speaking your truth will risk disapproval. Something in your life will begin to itch. Not in an urgent way, but in that subtle, persistent way that tells you this no longer fits. And in that moment, your mind will negotiate. It will remind you of what you could lose. It will point to all the reasons staying still is safer, and it's not lying. Comfort is safe in a way. It's predictable, but it's also stagnant. And if you listen closely, you'll hear the other side too. The voice that says, This might be hard, but this is right. That voice is quiet, but it doesn't disappear. Because deep down, you already know what's aligned. You just don't know if you're willing to let go of what's familiar to reach it. It's easy to trick ourselves into thinking we're choosing wisely, when we're really just choosing safety. We stay in roles we've outgrown because we're good at them. We hold on to relationships that drain us because they once made us feel seen. We delay changes because we're waiting for the fear to go away. But fear doesn't vanish. It just sits in the corner until you stop letting it decide for you. This year will challenge that. You'll be nudged again and again toward decisions that don't make you more comfortable, but make you more aligned. You might have to say no to something that looks perfect on paper. You might have to walk away from a version of success that everyone else applauds but secretly makes you feel hollow. You might have to stop being who you've always been, so you can become who you're actually meant to be. And here's the thing, alignment doesn't always come with immediate rewards. Sometimes it comes with resistance, with doubt, with discomfort. But underneath all that, there's peace. Not the surface peace of comfort, but the deeper kind. The kind that says, I may not know what's next, but at least I'm not lying to myself anymore. And that's where your strength is built. That's where your integrity sharpens. That's where real growth begins. The life you want won't be built on convenience. It will be built on decisions made from alignment. You won't always be able to explain those decisions to others. And you won't need to, because once you stop outsourcing your truth to other people's opinions, you become unstoppable. Not in the loud, aggressive way, but in the quiet, unshakable way. The way that moves with clarity, the way that sleeps well at night, the way that stands tall, not because it's certain of the outcome, but because it's certain of the reason. So in 2025, when life places that quiet choice in front of you, when the easy path and the true path split, pause, breathe, and remember that comfort might make things easier, but alignment makes them real. Choose real, every time. At first, the crescent moon doesn't come to you. It watches. From a distance. It doesn't arrive in the hands of someone who's still proving something. It doesn't rest in the palm of someone chasing from emptiness. It waits until you're ready. Not externally, but internally. That's what 2025 will reveal to you. Not just the beauty of having the moon in your hand, but the deep, quiet transformation required to hold it with grace. See, the moon isn't passive. It's a test, a reflection. It knows when you're grasping from ego and when you're acting from presence. It knows when you're still trying to perform for the world and when you finally come home to yourself. In 2025, you will be tested, not in dramatic, visible ways, but in small, decisive moments. Moments where you have the chance to react from your old patterns or respond from something new. And the more you pass these quiet tests, the more the moon begins to lean in. That's how life works. At first, it doesn't hand you power. It hands you responsibility. It watches how you treat silence, how you handle disappointment, how you show up when no one's looking. It sees how you navigate the shadow before it ever lets you step into the light. Because if the light comes too soon, without foundation, it blinds you. But when it arrives after the shadow work, after the self-honesty, after the discomfort, it illuminates everything with clarity, not arrogance. The moon will not land in the palm of someone still reaching from scarcity. It finds the one who no longer needs to grasp, the one who's no longer trying to control, dominate, or manipulate outcomes. The one who can sit in silence without needing to fill it. The one who walks into the unknown with reverence, not resistance. This is the work of 2025. To become that person. The strange part is, when you finally become someone the moon can trust, you no longer feel the need to display it. You stop chasing recognition. You stop broadcasting your growth. You stop performing your worth. Because now you feel it. And that kind of grounded knowing doesn't need validation. It just is. You'll know when it happens. Not because something loud will occur, but because something soft inside you will shift. The anxiety to prove yourself will ease. The urgency to fix everything will dissolve. You'll start to move slower, speak less, listen more. Not because you're trying to be someone, but because you've remembered who you are. And this isn't about perfection. You'll still stumble, you'll still doubt. You'll still feel the pull of your old ways, but the difference is, you'll catch yourself. You'll pause before reacting. You'll reflect before defending. You'll choose presence over pride. That's what the moon sees. That's what builds trust. And as that trust builds, something even more powerful emerges: stillness. Not the passive kind, but the kind that hums with quiet strength. You start to influence without force. You impact without noise. You radiate without needing to shine. That's the moon in your hand. That's the essence of real alignment. Not a loud power, but a steady one. So don't rush. Don't beg the moon to arrive before you're ready. Let this year shape you. Let it refine the edges, strip away what no longer fits, challenge your need for control. And when you find yourself standing in silence, unsure of what's next, remember, it's not a pause. It's preparation. Life is not holding you back. It's building the hands that will one day hold something sacred. Because when the time is right, and it will be, the crescent moon won't need to be chased. It will simply rest in your palm, knowing it is finally safe there.